The story of Oak Ridge is really a story of American science.
When the war ended, the story of Oak Ridge had just begun.
K-25 produced uranium for bombs all through the Cold War. Oak Ridge National Laboratory grew out of the graphite reactor to promote general science, material science, energy science.
And while the nuclear weapons were viewed as vital for national security, especially during the Cold War, it wasn't always certain that ORNL would survive.
The population of Oak Ridge dropped drastically, went from 75,000 down to 30 to 35,000. Big, significant drop.
Saving Oak Ridge meant creating a new purpose beyond winning a world war.
A gentleman by the name of William Pollard, who was a professor at the University of Tennessee, took it on his own to see what could be done to form an Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The politics were such that there wasn't a lot of interest in putting a national lab down in the rural East Tennessee.
He organized 14 Southern universities, convincing the government to partner with them and focus on research beyond the war effort. Once it was made official, its impact was almost immediate. 2 years after the bombs dropped, scientists at Oak Ridge announced their discovery of a new element. Promethium, number 61 on the periodic table, joined 70 years later by tennessine, another Oak Ridge discovery.
We certainly were pioneers in nuclear science and engineering, but most of our portfolio is in other areas, such as supercomputing, advanced materials, and the physical sciences, chemistry, physics, biology.
Bill and Leanne Russell started one of the world's most prestigious mouse genetics programs called the Mouse House at Y12. They discovered the significance of the Y chromosome, which makes boys boys, and tested the effects of radiation on hundreds of mice. As America went to space, so did Oak Ridge.
The tests that we performed were mimicking the conditions that a spacecraft would see in space.
And the phones that so many of us rely on these days, Oak Ridge played a part in that too.
The thing that I would use if I walked up to someone in a grocery store and they said, "Where are you from?" and I said, "Oak Ridge," and they said, "Oak what?" I mean, they didn't know anything about Oak Ridge. I would look and see if they have an iPhone. Okay, many people do. And I would point to it and I would say, "Do you know the touch screen technology that you are so comfortable with? That was invented in Oak Ridge."
Oak Ridge research contributed to major innovations in 3D printing, including the world's first 3D printed car in 2014. The lab has since printed everything from an excavator to a full-size home. And ORNL holds the Guinness World Record for the largest solid 3D printed item, a tool made for Boeing. It's cutting-edge science, and most of it's complicated. The spallation neutron source, a $10 billion Oak Ridge project, can feel like it requires a PhD just to comprehend.
Think of it as a big microscope that allows you to look into materials. You can see the structure of materials. It has translated into better understanding of how materials behave.
It's amazing cutting-edge work that no one else is working on.
But the work is not without controversy.
Starts now. Tonight, a trio with a long history of protesting nuclear weapons remains in custody after breaching one of the most secure sites on the globe.
In July 2012, a Catholic nun and 2 others broke into the Y12 nuclear complex at Oak Ridge.
They're accused of cutting through a handful of fences at Y12 early Saturday morning, then vandalizing the outside of a building with spray paint and human blood.
Megan Rice, age 82 at the time, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Other activists with similar views continue to protest today.
On the other side of the fence, they are literally planning for the destruction of the planet with the nuclear weapons production.
Ralph Hutchison has been here, protesting the Y12 facility every Sunday evening for 19 years.
It would be a terrible thing if the Y12 nuclear weapons plant was manufacturing weapons of mass destruction and there was no voice of peace confronting it on a regular basis.
After all, the materials produced inside the fence are among humanity's most powerful weapons of war.
The world is 4.6 billion years old and it could end in one afternoon.
Y12 says it welcomes the protesters. They're exercising the rights the plant says it's working to protect.
I'm actually proud that once a week we have protesters that gather in front of our site. You can't have it both ways. We're either proud of the nation that is safe and free, or we're not a nation that's safe and free.
Each of the 3 major facilities in Oak Ridge are Superfund sites, which, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, is any land that's been contaminated by hazardous waste and identified by the EPA as a candidate for cleanup. At Y12, crews are building a mercury treatment center to lessen the amount of mercury it releases into the environment when they demolish some buildings. It's projected to be finished by 2024. And cleanup at one site is almost complete. The area that used to house the K-25 site is now home to more than 20 businesses and a nature preserve. The goal is to transfer the land back over to the community by 2020.
Unless you are completely being cut off from society for the last 75 years, we have in some small way touched everybody.
75 years after it started, researchers in Oak Ridge are still changing lives and discovering new things today. The research they are working on now that could lead to their next major discovery.